last night on The Bachelor.
I have done nothing wrong, ever, in my life.
I know this. And I love you.
I love you too, Daddy. Money, please! My.
Goodbye, Lima, Peru. Hello, hometowns. The Bachelor is moving on to the final 4 women. And it's time for Peter to meet the families and have the tables get turned around on him for once. No, you better cry for my rose, Peter. Cry for it. And I have to say, this episode delivered. There's been a lot of flack this season for having too much drama, but this episode had that good stuff. That good drama, that good D. D stands for drama, by the way. So let's settle in and take a trip to Knoxville, Des Moines, Auburn, and Virginia Beach in this latest Bachelor Breakdown and recap. And please, no posting outright spoilers in the comment section below. Even though we're down to the final 3 now, sleuthing, though, is always welcome. First up on the hometown tour is Hannah Ann in Knoxville, Tennessee, who's taking Peter axe throwing because her dad's a forester. And, ooh, Peter's not off to a great start.
Because we're smart.
After missing a bunch more targets and kinda splitting this wood, I guess, Peter then sits down with Hannah Ann to show her something special. Remember when Hannah Ann showed Peter her list of all the things she loves about him? Well, he's done the same with a list like number 5, that you have a name for every dress you've worn. Really? That makes it to the top 5? Once that's out of the way, the two finally move on to meet Hannah Ann's family, the Slusses? Slusses? Where not everyone is so excited to see Peter.
It's very beautiful. I chopped the log in 1 second. 1 second.
How the hell did I end up in this situation? Like many a hometown, the group all then splits up to go talk separately about how things have gone on between the couple so far. While Hannah Ann and her sister cry over how nice Peter is, Peter has a sit down with Hannah Ann's mom to tell her that he wants to let Hannah Ann know that he's falling in love with her.
And you're the first person that actually knows that I want to do that.
Wow, what wonderful news. But Mrs. Sluss expresses that if Hannah Ann wants this and it makes her happy, she'll support her daughter no matter what. But it's not her that's going to need real convincing, it's Dad. So you better go and tell him all this love stuff and you better sound convincing. So Peter sits down with Dad to sluss it all out and let him know how he feels about Hannah Ann.
I'm actually hoping to tell her this tonight, is that I am falling in love with her.
Nope, don't like that.
So Hannah Ann's dad gives Peter a warning. Those are big words to say to someone, and I'm asking you not to say them to my daughter unless you absolutely 100% mean them, alright? Naturally, 5 minutes later, Peter says this.
I can honestly say that I am falling in love with you.
And of course, with that, there's a bunch of smooching before we move on to the next hometown, Kelsey in Des Moines, Iowa. And if you're a fan of feet, oh boy, you're gonna love this one. The two stomp on some grapes to make their very own bottle of wine together called Peter and Kelsey, because Peter really drained all his creative energy coming up with that list for Hannah Ann. The two then sit down with their wine, and Kelsey has something to say before they go visit her family.
I can honestly say that I am in love with you.
Time to meet the family! And after a short greet and something to eat, you know what comes next, the sit-downs. Starting with Kelsey and her sisters, who express how big a deal this is because it's been 2 years since Kelsey brought a boy home. Kelsey tells the two all about how far her and Peter have come, and that Peter's a guy who checks off all the boxes in someone she would want to spend her life with. Meanwhile, Peter is sitting down with Kelsey's mom, who tells Peter, as a woman who's gone through a divorce, she knows the pain of heartbreak and how hard that can be, and she doesn't want that for her daughter. So, don't break her heart. Then it's time for Mom to sit down with Kelsey, where Kelsey lets Mom know that she told Peter she loved him today. And though Mom's concerned about Kelsey having her heart broken, she ultimately says she wants what's going to make her daughter the happiest. At the end of the night, Kelsey takes Peter aside and tells him she meant what she said. And here's the moment where Peter gets to say it back.
And my heart is definitely falling.
My heart is falling. Managed to not drop the L word there, didn't you, Peter? Alright, halfway through, and we're on to Auburn, Alabama to meet up with Madison and her family. We learned way back in episode 1 that Madison and her family are big in the Auburn basketball world, and so naturally the first part of the date is shooting hoops together. Peter lets Madison know he's great from half court.
Nope, I was way off.
Then Coach Pearl comes out, who I suppose is Madison's dad's boss, and he sets them up with some drills where Peter really drops the ball, before it's time for another one-on-one, basketball style, where Peter actually drains a couple of shots, but it's Madison who wins. Moving on to the Pruitt's house, where it's business as usual, a brief greeting, a little bit of dinner, and then everyone scatters to have private chats with Madison or Peter. First up is Mom and Madison, where the topic becomes Madison's faith and whether or not Madison has opened up to Peter about how she's saving herself for marriage. Which she hasn't. Mom's advice? Be upfront, and if he respects that, you'll know what to do. Meanwhile, Peter's having a chat with Mr. Pruitt, who asks Peter if he has the same values, especially in terms of faith, that Madison does, and if he can assure him that Peter's feelings are genuine. And while Peter starts to say, if it all ended here, he'd pick Madison, this is not a quote by the way, it's just what he seemingly starts to say here, Mr. Pruitt interrupts and says, yeah, but it doesn't end here. We've got a few more weeks and a few more experiences with other women ahead. So there are definitely some concerns still out there. But Madison tells her father she needs to know that he approves of this relationship. Ultimately, Dad says that he's not ready to open the door to Peter being her husband, but he's also not ready to close that door either. So, that's the best that Madison gets before it's time to say goodbye. And two important subjects have yet to come up. Madison saving herself for marriage, and whether or not she's going to tell Peter she's in love with him. So the moment comes. Peter says he's falling head over heels in love with her, and it's silence from Madison. Alright, last but not least, get your popcorn out. It's Victoria's hometown in Virginia Beach. Here we get to meet my favorite part about Victoria all season, her dog Buxton. He runs right up to Peter and, "What's that, boy? You have something to say?"
Get out. Get out!
That was weird. Moving on. The two take an old-timey photo where they missed a great opportunity to give Buxton a little top hat, which I'm devastated about, before it's time for some ice cream and a Hunter Hayes concert. Oh, and don't worry, Peter, we only dated for a few months. And finally, it looks like we're having a trouble-free, normal date with Peter and Victoria.
Peter!
Wait, Marissa!
Enter Mystery Woman. Her name is Marissa, and apparently she and Peter dated. She stops Peter and says, "Be careful."
I would hate for any of who you are to be affected by somebody else.
Somebody like Victoria. And Peter's starting to freak out. What does she know and why is she saying this? Marissa says she knows Victoria. She's been in her social circle and she's really close friends with Victoria's best friend. She's warning Peter.
There's been many relationships broken up because of her,
And Peter's left to process what the heck is going on. So, naturally before they go to meet the family, Peter needs to address what happened, which Victoria doesn't take well.
You literally just came in here to act like that?
Excuse me? I literally
Excuse you, what?
Leave me alone,
We're
damn
having
it.
a brainstorm session.
Did I stutter?
Do you find drama relaxing? Does listening to sass brighten up your day? Then you're going to love Victoria Fuller's latest album, Excuse You What? Featuring great one-liners like,
I have
Why are
nothing
you
to say
being-
to you right now. I just have nothing.
and
Because I haven't felt you really fight for this.
Really? You
It's like-
haven't?
It's like
That's
multiple.
funny.
and who could forget the classic?
I am
Do you think-
so
do you think-
done with this
you think it-
conversation
you think it's
right
possible?
now.
All this could be yours for the low, low price of $49.99, no refunds. So Victoria retreats, and Peter follows her to say, "I'm sorry if it felt like I was taking Marissa's word over yours." And Victoria says, "I was going to tell you I love you tonight, but I can't anymore." And Peter's just like, "Stop. We need to talk about this. Stop walking away. We're only going to be able to work through this if, we actually work." In the immortal words of Sydney,
Do you like work at all?
and after more tears and a hug, Peter leaves, not meeting the family, just ending the date right there. The next morning, Peter is confused as ever. What just happened? Then, there's a knock on the door. Victoria's come to actually work. She apologizes, tells Peter she's falling in love with him, and gives him their date photo. The ball's now in your court, Peter. So, it comes down to this. The final 4-rose ceremony. 3 women move on to fantasy suites, 1 goes home. First rose is for Hannah Ann. Next, Madison. And it comes down to this. Kelsey or Victoria.
Victoria.
Whatever Victoria's case was, it was strong enough to get her a rose and one more chance with Peter, meaning Kelsey is going home. So, there are the final 3. They all cheers and Peter goes off, but not before Madison stops him. She's going to tell him what she never got to at her hometown, and she's doing it right there. And then, the episode ends. How will Peter react? We'll have to find out next week. So that's it for this Bachelor Breakdown for Week 8 Hometowns. I hope you enjoyed the video and be sure to like and subscribe if you did. We're getting right down to it now with only 3 women left, and you can be sure there's a lot to talk about from the preview, so keep your eyes open for the preview breakdown tomorrow. Until then, Bachelor Fantake, out.
Excuse me? I literally just...
Excuse you what?